From the Palmetto State Armory Studios, this is
WRWN,
Port Royal,
Hilton Head,
Savannah.
Hello, golf fans. This is the RBC Heritage Wrap-Up Show. This is Tom Kinder, and I am with the able wingman, the sweet swinger from Furman, Daniel Cort. Daniel, I tell you what, before we get into some of the action, I want to thank the people from the South Carolina Yacht Club. Every year we come here, and every year they just outdo themselves. What a beautiful place.
Yeah, it's not only a gorgeous community, but the yacht club has its own special vibe that goes on with, there's a lot of friendly faces down there. The views aren't bad. The food is pretty excellent. The Crow's Nest has awesome views. And there's always something going on around this club.
Well, and we've had the blimp fly over twice today. Yeah. So, I mean, there's lots going on. I also want to say hello to a couple people that emailed us, Michael Moore of Minnesota and David Geisler of Wisconsin. They're listening today. So, Michael, David, welcome to the show. But
I have two more. My good friends Jeff Shaw of Bluffton and Dan McMahon of Bluffton by way of Connecticut. Two really good friends of mine who are avid golfers, love the game, love to play. But they're two of the kindest and most thoughtful philanthropists in this amazing community. And that's one of the things I love about living in this area is all the charity, all the philanthropy that goes on. It's a pretty amazing place. And that you mentioned the Heritage Foundation and the money that this tournament raises for our community, all the volunteers at this tournament, and has been that way for years. And it's just it's a really special community when you combine Bluffton and Hilton Head together as one.
Well, you know what? Spectacular conditions can create great scores. We had a number of great scores. I got up early today to watch some of the bottom of the leaderboard take off and to see how they were going to play today. Let's see, Curt Kitayama was 5 under on the day. Justin Rose was 5 under on the day. Adam Schenk climbed 32 spots with a 6 under today. So right away I said to myself, this is going to be one heck of a horse race.
Yeah, more like a track meet. I mean, it's the best players in the world. You said when I walked in tonight, you said the cream really does rise to the top.
Without question.
When you got
it's the same cream as last weekend.
I was going to say you got the 69 best players right now that are here. Then you've got that top 10%, which are really playing at a different level. And there's one guy that just seems to have a bit bigger stick than everybody else right now, and he's like a big bully with it. We talked about the intimidation factor that is Scotty Scheffler in the game right now. But you know what? I didn't see any of those guys that looked intimidated out there. I mean, look at all the birdies. Look at the low scores that everybody's shooting. He's just shooting lower. He's just playing better. I never thought we would see a player that could rival Tiger's dominance, not just in the way he struck the ball, but in the way he thought, how he thought his way around a golf course. Scheffler seems to have that mental strength, that mental discipline, and knows where. But Tiger wasn't statistically the greatest putter in his heyday, but he was statistically the greatest putter when it mattered. Scheffler has that thing. Whatever that is, he has it. And then on top of that, he's the best ball striker maybe we've seen since Tiger.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, no one here in this room is going to argue with you.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, Scheffler shot 63 today, 8 under. That's the best round I've seen in this tournament in 3 rounds. We got a few stragglers that are just finishing up, but I don't think anybody's going to shoot 63 today. But if he shoots a 63 tomorrow,
game over.
Well, game over, but Webb Simpson's record is history.
Right.
262 and a 4-round, RBC Heritage back in what year was it? It was 2020.
2020, yeah.
And that's pretty amazing. I mean, Webb Simpson was 22 under, and we've got a chance to see somebody go 24 under. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, and again, going back to the intimidation factor, you don't really sense that on a Saturday. You will sense it on a Sunday. What happens, Tom, out there is these guys know that there's one guy that's going to set the pace. And when they start watching the leaderboard, say like today, when you start watching Scheffler, makes a string of birdies early and then keeps climbing up that leaderboard, it makes players press. And Harbour Town, we've talked about this, even with the wind laying down, it's not a course that you can press on and succeed with. You still have to stay committed to your shots. You have to stay committed to targets. When you get pressing around here is when you can make bogeys and double bogeys. So that intimidation factor is certainly an element here. I think it will come in more into focus and be more of a factor tomorrow because it is Sunday and everybody knows if I'm going to have a chance to win this, Scheffler's not going to come backwards. So, right now he's at 16 under.
He had a perfect day today.
You got to be thinking 20 under to have a chance.
He's not coming back to the group. You've got to chase him.
20 under's the mark.
And speaking about double bogeys, we talked last night about our co-leader, JT Poston, missing that 6-foot putt yesterday for birdie that would have made him, the lone dog up on top of this heap. He took a double on number 4 today. Again, we'll talk more about par threes tomorrow, folks, and we'll probably talk about par threes today. But we've got 4 of the best par threes on the entire tour here. And on number 4, he went for the pin, which was up front middle, landed short in the water, took a double on that hole, and he really never recovered. I mean, he only had 2 more birdies the rest of the day on 12 and 14, but he has fallen back. He still has a very respectable 12 under right now.
Yeah, he's not out of it.
He's not out of it by any means.
But
as streaky as he is, and when you consider he didn't birdie a single par 5 yesterday, he left some money on the table.
Well, and when you're looking at the leaders right now, 16 minus 15, 14, there's a handful of 13s, and then down to 12 is where JT Poston currently resides. But if you look at all those players, the least of those shot 2 under today. Poston's at 1 under. So on Saturday, moving day, we all know that Saturday is considered moving day on the PGA Tour. That's when, to shoot 1 under is extremely pedestrian in these conditions, and he may very well have cost himself a chance at this. But listen, he's the only other 63 in the tournament. He shot 63 in the opening round. Scheffler shoots 63 on moving day. So he can go low again, but what did we talk about? What do the best players in the world do? They go low when it matters.
Yeah,
anybody can go low in round 1 and 2. You got to go low on Saturday and Sunday. That's how you win tournaments.
And congratulations to Rory McIlroy today. He finished with a 68, 3 under, had 6 birdies, but he had 3 bogeys. But he's sitting at 10 under, so I'd have to look back at some of the history. That's about his best, 3 rounds here at Harbour Town.
Yeah, he doesn't like the shoebox here.
I agree.
Historically speaking, did you see his second shot on number 8, the hardest hole today?
Oh, he almost holed it.
I mean, I still the announcers were saying I still don't know how that ball stayed out of the hole. So Rory is still Rory. Rory could shoot 63 tomorrow and get it to 18 under. That could have a chance. I think the number is 20 or 21.
Well, the conditions on the golf course at Harbour Town are immaculate. The greens are rolling superbly. And, those of us that are here in the Low Country, we take for granted all these great golf courses we have and how they're in such great shape. And for those of you that think, well, all you need is sun and water, and we got plenty of both of those, there's a lot more involved in taking care of these golf courses down here. And we have with us coming up after the break Adam Miller, who is an agronomist. This guy is a turf manager. This guy knows everything there is to know about turf. In fact, the Nimmers, they probably would like to tap into this guy.
Yeah, I heard he knows more about grass than Snoop Dogg.
That might be the case. Hey, hang with us. We got everything that there is to know about the RBC Heritage coming up, and we will be right back.
Coverage of all things RBC Heritage, powered by Hilton Head Exterminators, continues on Rewind 1079. It's the wrap-up show with Daniel Cort and Tom Kinder, live from RBC Heritage.
Welcome back. I promised you that we would have an interview with an individual that is probably off the beaten path for most golfers. He's Director of Agronomy at Berkeley Hall Club. And Adam Miller, I want to welcome you to the wrap-up show. So thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And where does one become a director of agronomy? Where did you go to school for this? Is there a master's or is there a degree for agronomy?
Yeah, so I went to Virginia Tech and got my bachelor's in crop soil environmental science, concentration in turf management. You know, some other schools out there call it turf management, turf grass science. It kind of falls within the agriculture part of most schools. You can get a bachelor's, you can get certificates, you can get associates, you can get masters and PhDs if you're going to the educator route. So there's definitely different routes you can go.
Well, some of those routes, and I had to Google this because I was not sure what an agronomist did for sure. I know that you're into turf management and soil protection and so forth, but there evidently, according to the folks on the internet, there's a lot of different roles and jobs available for agronomists: biotechnology, environmental protection, resource conservation, plant breeding and genetics, farm management. So evidently you must have had a real interest, because I was just a plain old sales guy. I took marketing and that was it, but I never would have thought that there was a major in agronomy.
Yeah, when I was in school, you had guys that were going into crop production. I took classes in world crops, growing, corn and soybean in Africa and stuff like that. So, kind of got well-rounded in crop production before they really put you into the turf side of it.
All right. Well, where are you from originally?
I was born and raised in a small town in the coal region of Pennsylvania, a little bit north of Harrisburg, not far from Pottsville, Pennsylvania.
Are you a Steeler fan?
I'm not. My dad was born and raised in Philadelphia, so I'm an Eagles fan.
Okay, that works fine for me. Okay. So tell me about your duties at Berkeley Hall.
Yeah, so we have 36, golf holes, and then about a 25-acre driving range, learning center, practice facility. And I'm kind of responsible and oversee all of it. 2 superintendents, one on the north course and one on the south course, that report to me. And they kind of handle the day-to-day scheduling of the staff, tasks. And then I'm building the programs, managing the budget, overseeing capital projects and stuff like that. At the same time, guiding them, knowing that, the buck stops with me on both golf courses.
Well, you're for most golfers, I always kind of thought to myself, well, as long as we've got, water, as long as we've got fertilizer and sun, the grass takes care of itself. But the turf for a golf course is a lot more complex than that.
Yeah, no, definitely. My 3 importance that I always talk about is air, sunlight, and water. You can never have enough, and you can always have too little of some of it. So, air, that's why we aerate all the time, just to get air into the soil, to get the roots and give them a place to go. But it also helps with drainage of water when you get too much rain and that sort of stuff.
Before you came to Berkeley Hall, you told me you were in Maryland?
Yes, I was at Bethesda Country Club in Bethesda, Maryland.
All right, now how is managing a golf course in Maryland different than managing turf at a golf course in South Carolina?
I mean, again, it's balancing the air, sunlight, and water, so very similar there. Different grasses between South Carolina and Maryland. In Maryland, we had bent grass greens and ryegrass fairways. Here we do overseed, so we do have ryegrass in the wintertime. But then, our predominant stand is Bermuda grass in the summertime. So a little bit of different there. I mean, we do deal with a few similar pests. Grubs are everywhere in the country. Diseases that affect turf can affect both Bermuda grass and cool season grasses. So some similarities there. But, the biggest difference to me is the predominance of your rounds down here is when your Bermuda grass really isn't growing, and up there we play golf when the grass is actually growing.
And what kind of challenge does that create for an agronomist?
I think down here, a big thing is cart traffic, foot traffic. The grass isn't growing from, November till, about right now in April. So you can't really recover much from cart traffic. And I think that's one of your biggest challenges. If you go through a cold, wet winter where you don't have as much sunlight, your turf starts to thin a little bit, and you really can't grow out of it until you get the temperatures to get the Bermuda grass growing.
One of the things that we talk about down here quite a bit is overseeding, not overseeding. Tell me your point of view regarding when to overseed and when not to, and what courses might you alternate, every other year.
Right now, we overseed just our fairways on both golf courses. The decision was made to do that because when I got here, the North course, which was 20 years old, the turf just would struggle in the winter with no overseed. So we decided to overseed it to give the members a better playing surface in the winter. And, knowing that the Bermuda may not transition as well in the summer. And then same with the South course, they have Celebration Bermuda grass on the South course fairways. And that really does well with overseeding the ryegrass into it. A lot of your, events that, take place in Florida, Augusta, that sort of stuff, they're playing Celebration Bermuda with ryegrass in it. So Celebration does a really good job of transitioning from ryegrass back to the Bermuda grass in the summer. So, the decision was just made because we are doing more rounds and just wanted to have better conditions in the winter when the majority of our rounds are happening.
Well, you mentioned pests before. I had never heard of a mole cricket. I mean, evidently this area's got tons of them because that's all I hear about are mole crickets, and then mole crickets bring moles, and a lot of golf courses have that problem. I don't see any of those at Berkeley Hall. You must be doing the right stuff.
We have them. They're a very difficult pest. They overwinter here. They seem to do, really thrive in this area. I mean, I know a lot of courses on the island struggle with them mightily. And, one of the neat things about mole crickets, the best time to treat for them is at a full moon. And, using like Lemon Joy in our spray tanks with them agitates their skin to help take up the product. So there's some things we can do to control them, but they are a very difficult pest.
Now, do you consult with your counterparts at other golf courses, share ideas, and how much time might you talk to some people that have similar responsibilities as you have?
I mean, I'd say at least once or twice a week, I'm talking to somebody from a local club. Or our USGA agronomist, or someone else in the industry. A lot of our sales representatives were superintendents at one time. So there's a vast network of people that you can bounce ideas off of, and then also kind of the network that I came up through of superintendents. I lean on them a lot. It's a pretty big established network from my mentor to people that worked under him, and we're just a really kind of close-knit network. So definitely talk to them a lot as well.
Now, I know that I've heard through the grapevine that the Berkeley Hall North course is going to be torn up and redone. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but could you describe what you're going to do and why?
Yeah, it's not a major renovation by any stretch of the imagination. The membership's really happy with the Fazio design. I'd say the North course has kind of gotten a little, not tired, but overgrown over the years. So we're going to come back in and we're going to regrass it to a new strain of Bermuda grass. And so we're basically just going to strip off what we currently have, sod a new grass down. We're going to go into some of the bunkers, repair any drainage or liners that aren't repaired, put new sand in. We're going back to the tee boxes, and over time courses tend to shrink in size, so we've lost some square footage of tee space, which we really need right now because we're doing more rounds than ever. So we're going back and reestablishing those tees, making them bigger and grassing them, but we're really not It's not, there's no bulldozers coming out. There's no, major moving of dirt. I like to call it a little bit of a facelift. It's a great design, a lot of movement that was put into it. So we're just kind of giving it a refresh is essentially what's happening.
One of the things that I often hear is that a golf course needs a good base of sand. What is the ideal base of sand for a golf course on Hilton Head Island?
I think one of the things we struggle with here is we're definitely a heavy clay soil. And if you look at where I came from in Maryland, heavy clay soils, but most of the courses up that way were farms at one time. So, tilled, aerated, and all that, where the soils down here are kind of new. They're similar in texture, but they don't maybe have the aeration of the years of whether it was farming or golf courses and that sort of stuff. So they tend to get wet, really firm if they dry out. So we've started to, incorporate a lot of sand into that top to try and kind of alleviate that. And people go back and forth. Should you have really sandy soil? Should you have, heavy clay soils? And I kind of like to try and get a little bit of both. The sand helps the clay get some aeration, but the clay also helps keep a little bit of moisture around, and also it can firm up as it dries out. So I think just a good balance of not too much sand where you're draining so much, but a sand that's balanced from a pH perspective, water holding capacity, that really allows you to firm the surface, get a little bit of moisture off the surface during heavy rains, allowing the turf to grow good roots is kind of.
Well, you mentioned about changing out to a new variety of Bermuda. Very quickly, what kind of Bermuda is it and why the change?
So the original grass at Berkeley on the fairways and rough is TIF Sport Bermuda grass, and was a really good Bermuda at the time. It was very fine textured. The ball would sit up on it. And so 20 years ago, it was a really good grass. And breeding programs in all turf, they're breeding new grasses every year that are more drought tolerant, disease resistant, pest resistant. So, every 8 to 10 years, new grasses come out. And one of the things now with the newer grasses, TIF Sport really likes a lot of sun. And as I said, the trees have matured around Berkeley Hall since it was originally built, so it really struggles in shade conditions, doesn't handle some of our herbicides that we use as well as the newer varieties. In this area, I think cold tolerance, while you don't think of cold tolerance, we do have some cooler temperatures in the winter, but we also still have a lot of golf during those cooler temperatures. So something with a little more cold tolerance, in my opinion, will also help when we're still doing those rounds on it. So TIF Sport doesn't kind of have that. So, the club had been thinking about doing it, and so we're going to go to a newer variety. TIF Sport also doesn't handle overseed as well. So we're hoping that the newer grass we're going to will make it even stronger and better out here.
Well, that's great. We're talking to Adam Miller, Director of Agronomy at Berkeley Hall. Adam, I want to thank you for stopping by. Next time I take a divot on a golf course, I'll think of you.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Thanks for stopping by.
Coverage of all things RBC Heritage, powered by Hilton Head Exterminators, continues on Rewind 1079. It's the wrap-up show with Daniel Cort and Tom Kinder, live from RBC Heritage.
Okay, welcome back. This is the RBC Heritage wrap-up show. I'm here with Daniel Cort. My name is Tom Kinder. And Daniel, have we got much of a leaderboard going on right now?
Well, yeah, we've got a star-studded leaderboard. Scotty Scheffler, no surprise there. World number one, shoots a 63, 8 under today for a total of minus 16. He's 2 shots clear right now of Colin Morikawa and Tom Hoagie, who has a hole to play. Sepp Straka is at 14 under. Also, Patrick Rogers, Ludwig Auberg, Sahith Thagala, all 13 under. Seamus Power and Patrick Cantlay, as well as JT Poston, all at minus 12. So, yeah, we talked about track meet. All those guys are still well within this tournament.
Yeah, without question. I enjoyed the Adam Miller interview because I learned quite a bit. We take growing grass for granted, but when you consider that you have to move the tee boxes of the amateurs so that their landing zones don't compete with the professionals down there at Harbor Town, or when you consider that the majority of rounds down here are played when the grass isn't growing, versus up north when most of the rounds are played when it is growing. I mean, these are things that, quite honestly, I took for granted, but it was fun to listen to Adam.
Yeah, there's an art to this thing. It's why these guys go to so many years of school and study this stuff. It's a moving target too. Certain grasses and certain climates, and we talk about some courses like Augusta National that gets very little play by comparison to a Harbor Town, which what do we say, like 17 days they're closed for this tournament. The other 11 and a half months of the year, they're teeing off at 7:30 and play straight through 4 at $500 a pop. This place gets tons of play. So to grow grass out here with all those feet on the property and make it look like that, you got to know what you're doing. And Adam Miller's clearly got a handle on that. So Jonathan Wright is one of the best in the business. We're so fortunate to have him here as our course superintendent at Harbor Town.
I might add that Jonathan is from Northern Kentucky and an avid Bengal football fan.
I knew there was something there.
Hey, I've got news for you. We have a new toughest hole. We had number 14 in rounds 1 and 2. Today, the toughest hole on the golf course was number 8. 478-yard par 4. The pin was back left. And evidently that was enough to make those guys make a decision about how quick they wanted to turn that ball around and try and go for it back there in that corner. The easiest hole again was hole number 2, 539-yard par 5. That has just about always been the easiest hole at Harbor Town. I think it was maybe 3 years ago they lengthened that hole, but not enough to make any difference.
There's just not enough property out there. So unlike number 5, where they purchased the rights to 2 lots back there where homes sit on, and I'm sure the homeowners there got a nice little check from the Heritage Foundation to get that land, but they've lengthened that hole now to 570 yards. But the new tee that they debuted today, Tom, was on number 7. They pushed that tee all the way back to where the concessions used to be. Number 7, that tight little target, played 221 today. Now, that's a scary-looking hole. I think at Media Day, we played it from 160 yards, and it's daunting looking. And you still have to thread a shot in there, and that green it's not really receptive. It slopes away from you. So to be coming in there from 221, oh, my goodness.
I know, 221. When I saw that today, Scheffler had a great shot on that hole, by the way.
Sure did. He birdied it. Yeah, so no surprise there either.
Well, Scotty Scheffler, he is our leader, and I tell you what, he had a perfect day today. 8 birdies, to include a birdie on number 18. And he's playing it the way that Pete Dye said you had to play this course if you were going to win. And he is 4 under on the par 3s, 2 of which he birdied today. He is 8 under on the par 5s.
Yeah.
So he's doing it the way you're supposed to, which is just slightly better than his European counterpart, Ludwig Obert. And he's, I think, 2, maybe 3 under on the par 3s right now, but he also is 8 under on the par 5. So very interesting to see how this is all shaping up.
Well, Tom, if you go back to round 1, Scotty Scheffler clearly came into the tournament, said he didn't do the same level of preparation for obvious reasons. After winning the Masters, he got here kind of late on Tuesday, played 9 holes of the Pro-Am on Wednesday. Said he came out, a little bit flat, as we kind of all figured he would. His wife, Megan, is due to have their first child any time. He still says that he would even leave tonight if the baby was coming. I totally believe that. But He shanked a bunker shot on number 3 on his third hole of the tournament. Made double bogey there. He hasn't had a bogey he hasn't had a bogey in the tournament. He's had one double bogey. He's gone, since that time, he was 2 over. He's been 18 under since the third hole of the first round. Now, when players look at that's, to me, has got to be the most intimidating aspect. Is Scheffler's just not going to go backwards. He's not going to give away shots. And Harbour Town is still tricky enough that it can steal a few shots from you on any given hole because it's position golf. So that just shows you what a superior ball striker he is right now. And we've said it many times, not only is he the best ball striker on tour, far and away the best, his short game is likely as good or better than anybody on tour either. So you take those two ingredients and mix them together, and what do you have? Well, you have dominance.
Well, you know what? Speaking about holes, I looked at I watched in number 9 today, quite a bit. It was ranked number 16th most difficult hole all 3 rounds. So it's not a real tough hole. A lot of pars there, but you got to make a decision about if you're going to get a birdie. You got to make a tough choice. There's really 3 ways to play that hole. You either lay up, take your money club, go after the pin, make the putt, or you do what Ernie Els did for years, just knock it in that sand trap. You said Jason Day did the same thing, put it in the sand in front of the bunker, and then just knock it up there and get out of there with a birdie. Or get your 330-yard club out and go after that pin and see if you can't even knock down an eagle.
Yeah.
So it was interesting, and I was wondering, Scheffler hadn't played here that much. So I was going to compare him with Obert and Spieth and Cantlay. Well, the first round, Scheffler laid up to 114 yards, hit his approach shot, 2-putt, got a par. But Ludwig, he drove it 341 yards. He was just a little bit long on the right-hand side, chipped it onto the green, and made the 1-putt and got the birdie. So Scheffler evidently learned from that.
Yeah.
And he came back the next day, and he hit a phenomenal drive on number 9. Unfortunately, it was long enough and straight enough to hit that pot bunker, in the crease of the heart-shaped green. And he really didn't have a very good stance. Ended up knocking it out of the sand trap, but going long and then had to chip back up and get out with a par. But today, he drove 308 yards, 1 chip, 1 putt, got the birdie. So for here and evermore, he's going to hit that 330-yard club, if that's his 3-wood or his driver, whatever it is. But he's going after the pin.
Well, it was a 1-putt, but it was a 1-putt from about 40 feet. So that pin placement today is probably the toughest one. That front middle where the green is literally just a sliver. It's kind of like number 12 at Augusta. It's really narrow there, so it's all strategy there. But Scheffler hits it on the other side of the green and center cuts the putt. He shot 31 on the front and didn't slow down going back out and coming back in. So. Yeah, he's clearly learning his way around Harbour Town, but this is the winner this week. We've talked about this really every segment since we started this telecast, this broadcast. The winner this week are the fans. It was just a sellout crowd the last 2 days. It'll be sold out again tomorrow. Weather looks a little suspect tomorrow afternoon. But the weather's been perfect. The wind's laid down. Birdies are everywhere. The best players in the world are here. And they're getting to see the Masters champion going head-to-head with the 2 guys that he faced last week in Oberg, who was second, and Colin Morikawa, who was third. And you got a handful of other great players in the name of Sepp Straka and Tom Hoagie, and Patrick Rogers is there. So you've got some lesser name players, but you put it all together with a Sahith Thagala, and some other popular names. Let's see.
Sepp Straka, he's played well this week.
Sepp Straka, yeah. JT Poston's still in it. It's still anybody's game, but if you're a betting person, if you're a betting fan, how do you go against Scotty Scheffler? I mean,
well, speaking of gambling and betting and just overall greed in sports, I had a really interesting conversation with a guy that came up to me and said, I know that you're on the broadcast for the Heritage. He said, I'd love to talk to you before you go on the air. And he said, I'm really concerned about the greed that is in sports. I mean, he was talking, at least initially, I thought about Live Golf, but it goes way beyond Live Golf. He even came up to me and said, when this all started? And I said, well, Live Golf paid so-and-so. He said, no. It started back in the 1980s, and it's a very interesting interview. So when we come back, we'll hear from, one of the smarter guys I know, a guy named Rich Angeloni, talking about greed in sports.
Coverage of all things RBC Heritage, powered by Hilton Head Exterminators, continues on Rewind 1079. It's the wrap-up show with Daniel Cort and Tom Kinder, live from RBC Heritage.
Welcome back to the RBC Heritage wrap-up show. And you've heard throughout the week a number of our guests come on the air and talk about some of the more bigger issues of the day. In some cases, they're related to golf. But this one is related to golf. But our next guest is going to talk a lot about several different sports and the amount of greed that is seeping into each and every sport at almost every level that has a big potential to really kind of ruin these sports for American families. And with me today is Rich Angeloni, a personal friend of mine. He was on our panel for Live Golf last year and was compelling last year just enough that we've invited him back again to the wrap-up show. Rich, welcome to the wrap-up show.
Well, thank you, Tom. And Tom, you didn't have to pay me anything to come here. You know that.
I'm willing to buy you a BLT sandwich if you'd like one.
That sounds good.
Well, we've talked about Live Golf, and we've talked about Live Golf off and on all week. But this conversation started last year with the money that was flying around, the uncertainty about what was going to happen to the PGA, the fact that the Live Golf format wasn't really all that compelling for golf fans. Where do you stand today regarding Live Golf?
Well, I think my opinion hasn't got any better. I've tried to watch some of the Live Golf. There's certainly a lot of players on Live Golf that I'd like to watch on television. But, I just can't buy into the change in the format, the team format, also the shorts. I like watching, I just watched last week, the Players' Championship. I sat in front of the television probably 2 hours on Saturday, maybe 3 hours on Sunday, enjoying the competition, the quality of play. And I think that kind of dignity has been taken out of the game with Live Golf. It's team competition. I just can't get into it with the music blasting, this whole team competition. I just can't sit in front of the TV and watch it.
Well, I've kind of believed that to a certain extent the PGA set themselves up for this because the PGA players, it's a grueling schedule. 36, 38 straight weeks, 4 days of competitive golf if you make the cut. And then you've got a pro-am event that's mandatory, a practice round, and you're living out of a suitcase, flying around from hotel room to hotel room. They kind of, I can't blame the players for wanting to take all this money, although the amount of money that's being thrown away is staggering.
It is, and I agree with you. we sit there, as golf fans trying to watch, 4 days, maybe watching Thursday, maybe watching Friday, but wanting to watch on the weekend, the Saturday and Sunday, when it really becomes, where people are moving. That's moving day on Saturday. And I agree with you. I've focused on that at times, that how do these guys do that? Because I was fortunate in my working career. I played with a number of the pros that aren't on the circuit right now. I played 18 holes with Fuzzy Zeller. And this is on, when he was in Connecticut, and, he was entertaining. He enjoyed the game. You could see how much he enjoyed the game. But he was at the banquet on the Tuesday night. He was at the Pro-Am on the Wednesday. And then he had to play golf Thursday, Friday, in hopes of making the weekend.
Well, this week with the RBC Heritage, we've got a unique situation where, they've changed the format for the RBC Heritage. It's going to be a reduced field, 76 golfers or thereabouts, no cut, and still $20 million in prize money. But a golfer doesn't necessarily have to come to Harbortown. They can choose, I want to say 8 of the other 10, or maybe it's 7 of the other 9 signature events. But, it appears to me as if the PGA is experimenting, or the Heritage is experimenting with a different format that is more friendly for the competitive golfer, so that they can spend more time with their families and the like. But do you sense that it's going to water down the tournament for the fans, because there's no longer going to be that cut day where players either make it or don't make it, and for a lot of people that's exciting to watch the drama unfold.
That is an exciting part of the tournament, to see who's going to make the cut. Where's the cut line going to be? But just listening to what you just said there, Tom, and what I was saying earlier, it is grueling, to be out there, trying to make it on the PGA Tour. And we all know players. I know people from Rhode Island and South Carolina here who have tried to get on the tour, and they'll be playing in a few tournaments. But if you don't make that cut, you don't get a paycheck, and your sponsor's going to stand behind you. Your dad, your uncle, your friends at your golf club. But it seems to me that this format may have some legs to it, where you cut down the number of players that they're going to make it to the weekend, and they're going to be able to get a paycheck. But it's going to clearly cut down the field on the potential players that could eventually make it on the PGA Tour.
Well, you had, I thought, a very significant statement when we were talking just the other day about when this all started, this greed seeping its way into sports at virtually every level. And tell our listeners a little bit about your perspective on where this all started.
Yeah, well, my thoughts on that, and I was telling Tom, and when you're retired, you have a lot of time to think. I was saying, where did this all start with the Live Tour, basketball, the salaries in basketball? And I said, did it really start back in the Olympics, back when the Eastern European countries were all being challenged that they were sending professional athletes to play hockey, to weightlift, whatever it may be in the field, and we were sending our amateurs. People were trying to get on the hockey team, to get on the basketball team. Did it all start back in the 80s when we were focusing on the fact that we weren't sending our professional athletes, and lo and behold, in the 90s, we started to field a basketball team. And I think that was our first entry into the Olympics with professionals. And then
certainly what I remember.
And next was the hockey team. Yeah. And I think that's where probably all this paying athletes really started, because the professionals were now entering really what was considered an amateur sport at the time.
Well, I can tell you that the Olympics, the Federation of the Olympics, they approved professionals to compete in the Olympics in 1986. And America didn't get on board with that until 1992 when we had the Dream Team.
Dream Team. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people remember that. And but that the impact this has on the casual sport enthusiast, the people that I grew up having my own sports idols. I mean, and I went to games with my dad, but I kind of think to myself that we're going down this road where it's going to be very, very difficult for us to, for the American family to afford going to some of the same sport venues that I went to watch my heroes like Pete Rose or whoever it might have been, Kenny Anderson, our old Bengal quarterback. But, college, if you look at college and what's happened with conference realignment, the portal system, the nil money, which really drove Nick Saban out at Alabama. He said, look, my players were all concerned about two things: their playing time and how much nil money they were going to make. And he saw the handwriting on the wall that these colleges are out there trying to make as much money as they can. But again, the people that subsidize these colleges with the purchase of tickets and buying products that are sold on television and it's television revenue that these colleges are thinking about when they realign these conferences. I mean, it's you kind of wonder where it's all going to end.
That's a good point, Tom. In fact, I was watching. I've got into women's basketball lately, watching Caitlin Clark.
Yep.
Who's just an amazing athlete. But I also noticed while I was watching her team play Iowa, when there was ever a timeout, there was a commercial, and lo and behold, who was on the commercial but Caitlin Clark?
Yeah.
Already in college, and she was on two different products, and it's become big money in all college sports. Football, basketball, when already we're getting into today's the start of the NCAA, which I enjoy watching as many games as I can, but already a number of players, and I was telling Tom earlier, from my alma mater, one of the players, the team made the NIT, but one of the players already decided he wasn't going to play in the first game, and the team lost. But sure enough, he's going into the portal. I'm sorry, he's training professional, not in the portal. He's training professional.
Yeah, I tell a lot of people that'll listen that I know a lot of fans are excited about the 12-team college football championship format. And I'm still scratching my head on that one because, if you're an at-large team, you have to play 3 extra games. And by the time you get those 3 extra games, you're worn down pretty good. And if you're one of those professionals that's trying to make, big money at the during the NFL draft, you may not be too anxious to play all those extra games as a college football player. Look, Rich, you're always the voice of wisdom anytime we have you on the show, and I want to thank you for dropping by today. You've given us a lot to think about.
Well, thank you, Tom.
Where does this all end? I mean, there's just no telling. But, for the average American, we love our sports fans. You and I both have our favorites, and I hope that can continue in the near future. So thanks for coming by the Wrap-Up Show.
Well, thank you, Tom. Appreciate it.
Coverage of all things RBC Heritage, powered by Hilton Head Exterminators, continues on Rewind 107.9. It's the Wrap-Up Show with Daniel Cort and Tom Kinder, live from RBC Heritage.
Welcome back. This is the RBC Heritage Wrap-Up Show. This is Tom Kinder, and I am here with Daniel Cort, the sweet swinger from Furman. And when I say that, folks, I mean he is a good player. We both went out there to Harbortown this year. We played in the annual Media Day event. I shot 84. My buddy here shot 79, maybe even 78. but he knows how to get around a golf course, particularly Harbortown. So Daniel, tell us what's going on down there at Harbortown right now. Give us the leaderboard.
Well, that's very kind of you to say, Tom. My game ain't what it used to be. That's all I can tell you. Scotty Scheffler, no surprise, world number one, is our leader, but his lead was just diminished by one shot. Sepp Straka comes in with a beautiful birdie on 18, hits it in there about 16 feet and drains the putt. So Sepp Straka will be playing with Scotty Scheffler in the final group tomorrow. He is one back at -15. Colin Morikawa, your world number 13, and third place at the Masters last week. He's at 14 by himself. Patrick Rogers, Ludwig Oberg, and Sahith Thagala are all at -13. We have five players at -12. Tom Hoagie, Seamus Power, Patrick Cantlay, and JT Poston. That is 4 players.
Well, I might also mention that Dwayne Bach left Kevin Kisner, and he is with Sepp Straka now. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know. I remember weird things, but Kevin Kisner and Jim Furyk were both 15 under to get into that playoff, and that's exactly where Sepp Straka is right now. So Dewey knows how to get his his boys around this golf course.
And he's always been a good friend to our show.
Yeah,
he's outstanding.
Good old Aiken boy.
Well, you know what? We've got the fewest number of past champions in this tournament than we've ever had, but they are familiar names, not just because they've won here, but because they are real factors on the tour. And we've got the number 12 ranked, player in the world, Matthew Fitzpatrick. We've got Jordan Spieth, who won in a sudden death playoff. What was it? I guess a year ago, 2 years ago.
22, yeah.
And then Webb Simpson, who owns the current 4-round tournament record, 262 strokes or 22 under par. Those 3 gentlemen are in this tournament, and collectively, between the 3 of them, they are at 17 under total after 3 rounds. They're 1 stroke better than Scotty Scheffler. And today...
That puts it in context, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, when I looked at that, and I thought to myself, if you're a past champion, you know how to maneuver around this golf course.
Sure.
And Scotty's only been here a couple times, so I mean, but evidently he knows how to maneuver everywhere he goes.
The superlatives just don't end, and he's entered into Tiger territory with his dominance right now. We never thought we would say that, but it's literally happening right before our eyes. So a couple of records that he has a chance to knock down. More records. He's just racking them up like crazy here. So he has a chance to eclipse Webb Simpson's -22. He's got to go really low to do it, but it looks like
64 to break it.
Right. Now, don't sell him out. I mean, he can certainly do it, but that is a tall order. The other record that I think this is interesting is there are only 2 players that have backed up their Masters win with a win the following week at the RBC Heritage. You go all the way back to 1978. Gary Player wins the Masters and comes here and takes the plaid jacket. The other is Bernhard Langer in '85. Won the Masters, came 140 miles
Bernhard
south.
is still winning tournaments.
I know Bernhard is. He's not human. He's a machine.
Father Time has passed him. He can't find him.
He's like good German engineering, and he's just
right.
a money making machine. So. Scheffler has that record that he can also get in the middle of, and a whole host of others. This would make 4 out of 5 tournaments that he's won. The last, if he wins tomorrow, that will be 4 of the last 5 tournaments he's teed up that he's won, and the one that he didn't win. He got second place. He missed an 8-foot putt in Houston 2 weeks before the Masters. Steven Jaeger, who he played with today, and Jaeger handled himself beautifully, shot 4 under. He's -11. But Scheffler could easily be looking at 5 in a row. He and Nelly Korda are lighting the golf world up. She's also going for her 5th in the row tomorrow. So,
well, there's one more thing about the past champions today, and they all had pretty good days, but between the 3 of them, they had. They were 5 under today. And, of course, We had the perfect day from Scotty. He had 8 birdies. So I mean, it just goes on and on that people that know this course and know how to get around it, they don't have anything on Scotty Scheffler. He is that good a golfer.
Yeah, I watched him. Again, he's a superior ball striker, but I watched where he missed shots, and that's preparation. He's not played here that often, but he's clearly done his homework. And let's don't underscore the value of having a guy like Ted Scott on your bag. Ted Scott, who was Bubba Watson's caddy for a number of years. Ted Scott actually has carried the bag for 4 Masters championships, 2 with Bubba Watson and now 2 with Scotty Scheffler. But Ted Scott, real even keel guy. He and Scotty are both strong Christian guys. Their faith is incredibly meaningful to them. They carry that with them out on the golf course. And, that chemistry, a lot like Tiger had with Stevie Williams, like Phil Mickelson had with Jim Bones Mackay, those partnerships are they're stealth. And clearly, I think Ted Scott helped Scotty with that preparation. And, like 15 today is a great example of putting the ball in the right position. Scheffler hits his drive down the left side, has to hit a really high 280-yard iron over the trees, but lays it up just in front of the green where he had plenty of green to work with, almost holes his eagle chip out. It's things like that he does that nobody notices. And not only is he hitting it better than everybody else, he seems to be thinking better than anybody else. And again, those are scary combinations.
Well, when we started this on Thursday, there was a name that had a good day on round 1. I mean, he had a perfect day in round 1. The 31-year-old Stanford phenom, Patrick Rogers. And I noticed he had not yet won on the tour. And I wondered how could he be in this tournament if he's never won before. But you defended him. You knew exactly who he was, and you told me he could play. And here he is, tied for 4th.
Yeah, he's just one of those guys. It's unfulfilled promise. We saw it with Charles Howell. And interestingly enough, Patrick Rogers has gotten to 2 playoffs in his career, one of which he lost to Charles Howell at the RSM down in Sea Island, Georgia. But he came out of Stanford as the number 1 ranked collegiate player in the country, won the Haskins Award. And he's a big guy, hits at a country mile, very athletic. But I think the bugaboo on his game has always been short game. He's been in the middle of the pack and putting, and we know that's really what separates success and mediocre on tour. Is all these guys can hit it. They can all strike the ball. They all drive it long. It seems like today, and the difference is what you do with the flat stick. And this week, he's been in the top 10 in strokes gained putting. So he's just the kind of guy, who knows, sometimes there are late bloomers, like Kevin Kisner was a late bloomer. He didn't start winning tournaments until he was in his early 30s. So, some of these guys just need a little time to get the mental the all-important mental
it's a maturity.
confidence.
It's a maturity that comes along with
that's right.
knowing exactly how to compete.
That's right. Well, so a little bit of a surprise to see Patrick Rogers up there. I won't mince any words there, but he handled himself great today. They say when you're not in that position that often, that's when you really are going to find out what you're made of and how well your game is holding up. He had a kind of a balky birdie or a bogey on 15, but righted the ship, comes back and birdies 17 to get it in at 3 under today. He's right in the middle of this thing. So, the players that everybody's going to be watching, obviously Sepp Straka, a couple wins on tour, he can get it done. He's one of the lesser-named players that can get it done. But Colin Morikawa, clearly 2 majors, third place at the Masters, played with Scotty Scheffler in the final round last week. He's one to watch. Patrick Rogers, we just spoke about. Ludwig Ahlberg, clearly only 3 back. He can get it done. And I really like Sahith Thagala. I mean, this guy
My
plays with
my
lots
dark
of
horse.
passion. Yeah, lots of passion, lots of style. I think those two young guns, they're fearless enough to believe that they can go down out there tomorrow and catch Scotty Scheffler. I would look for the biggest challenges to come from either Thagala or Auberg tomorrow.
Well, there's another reason to come down here tomorrow, to be honest with you. Every Ryder Cup player is in this tournament. And when I look at Scheffler against Auberg, I mean, those two guys are going to be going head-to-head for a long time. You know, Ludwig being just 24, Scotty being just 27. They're going to be playing a lot of competitive golf against each other. And I've got a feeling that these guys are both going to make each other even better players. But it brings whole new meaning to the Ryder Cup.
Well, yes, it does, as if it needed any more meaning. I mean, that is one of the greatest sporting events that we have. But certainly, you know, when I watched the final round of the Masters last week, you could sense that Auberg is not afraid of the moment, and that's what you want in a young superstar. He has the talent; we all know that. He has the look, he has the demeanor to be great. He's got that star power, that it factor, but he's out there to win. He's not out there to look good and get endorsement deals. He's out there to win, and my gosh, he's right there for the second week in a row. And if you don't think he wants a little payback from last week, then you're missing something. I suspect he'll come out firing early and often.
Well, we've had 3 sudden death playoffs in our last 6 RBC Heritage matches, and we could very well have one again tomorrow. Stay with us. We'll be right back, and we're going to talk about that very same subject.
Coverage of all things RBC Heritage, powered by Hilton Head Exterminators, continues on Rewind 1079. It's the wrap-up show with Daniel Cort and Tom Kinder, live from RBC Heritage.
Welcome back. This is the RBC Heritage wrap-up show. Scotty Scheffler is our leader today. And Daniel, take us through the leaderboard as it stands.
Well, as you mentioned, Scotty Scheffler, no surprise. World number 1 is our leader at -16, followed by Sepp Straka, who's one back at -15. All by himself in third place, and -14 is Colin Morikawa. We have a few players at -13, including Sahith Thagala, Patrick Rogers, and Ludwig Auberg. At 12 under, 4 players, Seamus Power, Patrick Cantlay, JT Poston, and Tom Hoagie.
Poston, missed that putt, and then, didn't, got the double bogey on number 4. I mean, do you think that impact, missing that putt last night had a big impact on how he started today?
I don't.
No.
I just think in 4 days you're going to have an off round,
Okay.
unless you're Scotty Scheffler. I think every one of the guys in this field probably, even the difference is the best players seem to. Colin Morikawa talked about it after his round yesterday. He said I hit it kind of terrible today, but I just missed it in smart spots, and I got up and down. Still turned a score in, made a score with his C game. So that really is for the JT Postons of the world, for the Patrick Rogerses of the world. It's learning to do what Tiger always talked about, was post a score without your best stuff. And that really, it's one round, and sometimes it's just 9 holes within a 72-round tournament that costs players a significant.
And when you have a
amount of
bad
money.
hole, I mean, you want to put that in a box, put it on the shelf, and forget about it. But I was thinking last
Easier
night.
said than done, right?
Oh, without question. And I was thinking to myself, here he is. It was bad enough to miss the putt, but it was on the 18th hole. He had to sleep all night on that thing, and I thought to myself, you know what? If he knows he's going to be in a dogfight, he's going to be against the number 1 world player, he's going to have to make that putt. And I just wondered if it shook his confidence to a certain extent.
Who knows?
Yeah.
We really don't know. I wouldn't think so. He's certainly on form, and he knows he's got a 63 in his bag. The question's going to be, Tom, for the first 3 days, the weather has been virtually identical. Sunny skies, very little wind, greens that are firming up some, but still receptive. Tomorrow, weather's going to change a little bit. We're looking at 80% chance of rain with maybe some severe chance of thunderstorms in the afternoon and
But
10
wind,
to 15
I
mile an hour
understand.
winds out of the north.
That changes everything.
It does.
Folks. I mean, it's the impact it will have on some of the more difficult holes. Number 8, number 15, number 18. When the wind's coming out of the north, you're heading in. You're going right into the teeth of the wind, and it's a different golf course when the wind is coming from the north.
Well, and then I look at, given that that's the case, now I look at even more. I look at Scotty Scheffler. I look at Sahith Theegala, Patrick Rogers for sure, and Auberg. All of those guys hit a penetrating ball flight. Patrick Cantlay is another one. Colin Morikawa likes to work the ball a little bit more. He hits more of a spinny shot, even though he's extremely accurate. If you're not hitting that dead arm, less spinny shot in the wind, especially around Harbor Town when it gets really difficult to test the direction of the wind on the back nine because of the tree coverage, you're suspect for some big numbers. And as we always talk about, it comes down to starting at number 14 is usually where the outcome of the tournament is decided. And it'll be interesting to see how much of a factor the weather plays tomorrow.
Well, I've been doing this since 2006, the year that Aaron Badley won this tournament. The last 2 years, we had Matt Fitzpatrick in a playoff win over Jordan Spieth. The year before that, it was Jordan Spieth in a playoff win over Patrick Cantlay. In just the time that I've been here, we've had 7 sudden death playoffs out of 18 years.
Yeah.
So if I was to look back on a fantastic finish, and what I might expect was my favorite. There's a bunch of them, but I'm such a Boo Weekley fan. I've got to go with 07 and his first win. And what was so interesting about that was play got suspended and they had to resume the match on Monday. They took us all off the course and they put us in the hotel over there so that the wind could blow through, and they thought it was going to be a lot worse than it really was. But Boo missed on Monday. He had to chip in twice from off the green to win that tournament by 1 over Ernie Els. The very next year, and I might also remind everybody that Boo Weekley is the last champion we've had here who won back-to-back. In 08, he's on the green on 18. He has a 3-stroke lead. And it isn't so much the golf that I remember. It was Boo Weekley in the press conference in the media room afterwards. Yeah. He tells everybody, he said, I asked my caddy, I said, I think it's going to left edge, don't you? He said, just hit it. He said, this is important. He goes, he thought he needed to make the putt to win. And he said, no, you're up by 3 strokes. He said, just putt it and let's get out of here. And he said something that I've never forgotten. He said, I'm just not a very big scoreboard looker at her. Sounds like something Yogi Berra would say.
Oh, my God.
So those are 2 fantastic finishes that I'll never forget. One was great golf. One was just Boo being Boo.
Well, I think the year that he chipped in twice, he said, the way I calmed myself down was I looked out there on the Calibogie and I thought I'd rather be fishing. So he said I wasn't even thinking about no golf. But we need more characters like Boo in the game, don't we?
Oh, without question.
Well, I wanted to, Tom, quickly give a shout-out to Lucas Glover, who I mentioned earlier this week. Lucas Glover is from my hometown of Travelers Rest, South Carolina. He was a 3-time All-American at Clemson University. He won the U.S. Open in 2009. He's just widely known as one of the true gentlemen on tour. 45 years old now. It's kind of hard for me to believe. I used to watch him hit balls at Green Valley Country Club. He was just a pudgy little kid, but was already a phenom. He was shooting in the mid-60s when he was 8 years old. But he received, per the governor last night, the highest award, the state's highest civilian honor, which is the Order of the Palmetto. last night on the 18th green. So I wanted to say a huge congratulations to Lucas Glover. He's one of the really good guys in the game, and I mentioned my friends who are philanthropic. Lucas is a philanthropic guy, and couldn't be more deserving.
Excellent. Well, you were going to share with us your favorite finishes.
Well, you know what I'm going to say.
Everybody loves Cooch.
Yeah, everybody loves Cooch here at Harbortown. I was always a Matt Kuchar fan. I became a fan of his when I watched him play in the Masters for the first time as the U.S. Amateur champion, and he competed. I mean, he was in the hunt there for a while. But Kuchar on 18 in 2014, I had I was on the 17th green. He had about a 3-foot putt left for par. I had run up the fairway on 18 thinking that he was going to make that. Unbeknownst to me, he missed it. So I was thinking he was tied for the lead. And no, I was thinking he was one up, and he was actually tied for the lead. So I didn't know he needed that bunker shot. So he hits it short in the bunker. The wind was crazy. He holes out from about 40 yards. And as it turns out, that was the championship putt.
And we still have that call in the archives.
Matt Kuchar holes out of the bunker on 18 to go to 7 under for the day, 11 under for the tournament. Matt Kuchar has been knocking on the door, folks, for 4 weeks. And I think he finally broke it down in a big way. Matt Kuchar, they love the Cooch here at Harbortown.
Well, yeah.
You are such a professional.
Well, listen. That was back in the day when I was out there 4 days. You remember that? I would walk 20 miles in 4 days, chasing these guys down, and you get to that moment, the apex, the zenith, the moment of the tournament. You spend 4 days waiting for it, and there it was. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to make this count.
Would you rather be here or out there chasing those calls down tomorrow?
I got to tell you, brother, I'm 53. I've got arthritis in my elbow, in my back, in my knees. I love sitting here in the crow's nest with you and Tim Finley drinking my Diet Coke. This is right where I want to be.
And we'd love the fact that you're here, Daniel. Folks, that's it for tonight. We hope that you'll join us tomorrow for the 4th and final round of the RPZ Heritage, and believe me, it's going to be a barn burner. We are looking at a weather change that could really have a major impact on the final, let's say the final group, whatever that might be. But I if you're not within 4 strokes, I just don't see you being able to compete for this jacket.
I agree. I think the guys at 12 still have a chance.
Yep, there you go. Good night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow night.
From the Palmetto State Armory Studios, this is
WRWN,
Port Royal,
Hilton Head,
Savannah.